everybody, it's BJ from Yard Breather Outdoors, and it is July 1st, 2018, and it just occurred to me we have 2 months until Wisconsin's early goose and teal season begins. So with that in mind, I got motivated and I said, hey, you know what, I need to finish part 2 of the Do-It-Yourself North Dakota how-to guide. So with that being said, part 1 we talked about licenses, just the mindset of going out there. In part 2, right now, we're going to talk about housing and where to stay out there and where to hunt, things like that. So without further ado, let's get started. So if you haven't found a place to stay yet, you're kind of behind the 8 ball and you need to get moving like now. It's going to be slim pickings. Honestly, you should have been looking probably back in April, March. Myself personally, when I get back from a trip, I give it about a week. And if I like where I stay, which I have in the past, I call them right away and let them know, or at least let them know before I leave. But that being said, all hope is not lost. There's still some options out there. So number one, what you want to do, and this is what I would do, is jump online, go to Google, and just enter places to stay in North Dakota, hunting or hunting lodges in North Dakota, and you'll get a lot of different places that'll pop up. You'll get large search engines, you'll get small little independent places. Myself, the place we're staying at this year, I shouldn't say I found it on Craigslist, but it's available on Craigslist. But what you can do is go to Craigslist, okay? Go under North Dakota, look under vacation properties, and there's usually some things in there. Beyond these lodges or these little cabins, there's a lot of little houses and cabins, by the way, that are owned by private renters out there that are more than happy to rent things out. You've also got hotels, bed and breakfast, you've got big hunting lodges, things like that. What I can tell you about these bed and breakfasts and these small hotels that are in the smaller rural areas out in North Dakota, they get it. And North Dakota in general gets it. Okay, what I mean by get it is you're going out there to hunt, they're going to expect you to have guns, they're going to expect you to have trucks, they're going to expect you to have mud, they're going to expect you to have dogs, things like that. So there are some places out there that are accommodating. They will understand you have a dog with you and they will allow pets. Some of the places will even have cleaning stations at them, okay? Now, I can't say that this is true for some of the bigger hotels in the larger metropolitan areas, like say Williston and Bismarck and Grand Forks or Fargo, okay? So my suggestion to you is call ahead and talk to them, let them know why you're coming out there, okay? Lots of bed and breakfasts out there, can't leave those out. The other thing to keep in mind here too is you have access to an RV or a travel trailer. That's a good option because there are plenty of camping places out there that will allow you to pull in there and have power. Some of them will even allow you to hook up at bed and breakfast parking lots for power. But again, you got to check with the places that you want to stay at. What else can I tell you about staying out there? How much are you going to pay? Well, it depends on what you're getting. The first year that I stayed out there, I stayed in an 18-foot trailer on a lake, and it was $35 a night. What I got from that is I got a warm place to stay, a fridge that works, a generator hooked up to it, and an outhouse. Okay, it wasn't the cleanest place in the world, it wasn't the nicest, but I was comfortable at night and had a place to stay. It kept me out of the elements. For 3 years after that, I stayed at a beautiful farmhouse in a small community with a 2-stall garage, 4 bedrooms, just a gorgeous, gorgeous place. And basically for me personally, to stay there for a week was $500. Okay, so you can see that you're going to pay a little more to get a little more. Pay less, you're going to get a little less. But let me put it to you this way, it all depends on what you want out of it. Me personally, I'm going out there to hunt. All right, I'm not going out there to have a nice place to stay and hang out there all day. I'm going to be out hunting. I just want a place to come back after my hunt, get cleaned up, take a shower, eat and sleep and keep dry. Now, there are some places out there that along with your, rent of the place, if you stay at a lodge, they'll offer you certain things like equipment. They will offer you guides. You might even get property. So obviously you're going to pay a little bit more for things like that. But just keep that in mind, okay? Sooner than later, you got to get after and get these places. All right, so the next thing we bring up is where to hunt. Well, North Dakota as a state is a great state to hunt regardless of where you're at, but obviously it's all going to depend on the species. Since we're talking about waterfowl and we're talking about upland birds, what I can tell you is there's a section of the state basically that is from the Missouri River, okay, which bisects the state, east okay? And as far north as Olson, North Dakota, and as far south as the farthest south central area. That's that prairie pothole region. There's lots of potholes in the water, and there's agriculture in there, which are great places to not only rear young waterfowl, but it's also a travel corridor where birds can feed and rest and have shelter and all the things that they need as they make their trip south, okay? So those particular areas are great. Now, I did have a friend last year that stayed in Oaks. Oaks is about, I don't know, maybe an hour, 45 minutes maybe from Fargo or Grand Forks. But that being said, it wasn't necessarily in that area that I mentioned, but they shot ducks. So something to keep in mind. Now, when we talk about places to stay, we also talk about like property. Now, what I'm going to tell you is this. North Dakota has a great program. It's called PLOTS, and it's basically, PLOTS stands for Public Lands Open to Sportsmen. I have hunted plots in public land exclusively in the past 5 years that I've been out there, and I've never had any issues. That being said, what private lands open to sportsmen is basically people own property, and again, I apologize, I don't know the specifics, but they get certain tax breaks or government breaks some way, shape, or form by allowing people to hunt, fish, and hike, bird watch, all those things on their property. Now, you say, okay, that's great, how would I find this property? Well, there are two ways. Number one, the state of North Dakota puts out this plots book every year. It's free. Now, you can't order it, they don't send it to you, but once you cross the border into North Dakota, you can find this at every gas station, sporting goods store, hotel, motel, bed and breakfast, Department of Tourism building in every town. They're there, you grab them and just take them. And basically what it does is it's a map book, and it takes the state, and it's a CAD system, sections it off into different areas. So what you do is if I'm hunting in the area of Burleigh County, I go to page 23, which is right here, it tells me. And you probably won't be able to see from where you're at, but we'll take a closer look at it in a little bit. But you go to page 23. And it's a color-coded map, okay? And each of those colors stand for something, okay? It's basically going to show you areas like National Wildlife Refuges, state hunting areas, waterfowl production areas, Army Corps of Engineer, prairie lands, all those areas that you're allowed to hunt, okay? You can also find this in an interactive CAD map online on North Dakota's Game and Fish site, and we'll go to that in a moment. The differences between the two, this is, I guess, for lack of a better term, not a living document. What I mean by that is, this is set in stone, it doesn't change, okay? The online plots map is updated on a daily basis. So for instance, if a property is being pulled out of the plots program tomorrow, I'll see it there today, I go there tomorrow, they're going to remove it. This just stays the way it is, okay? Now, am I saying that that happens all the time? No, it doesn't. The 5 years that I've hunted out there, I've never hunted a property one day, all of a sudden gone to it the next day and it's not there. Okay, but just something to keep in mind. So let's take a moment here and let's take a look at the CAD map. All right, so let's take a look at the interactive map here. So what you're going to want to do is go to North Dakota's Game and Fish Department, okay, and I hope you guys can all see this here. But it's basically gf.nd.gov, okay? And you're going to go down to the right side here, and you're going to click on, again, I hope you all can see it, but it's Plots Private Lands. Go ahead and click on that, and it pulls up that particular page, okay? So, as you scroll down here, there's two ways you can access this, okay? What you're going to want to do, bear with me here, is I believe click on Hunter's Resources. And then what you can do is you can go do the mobile view, or you can actually do the map sheets, which is a PDF. Now, I've done this before, and it's pretty handy because finding internet access out there on the prairie doesn't, it's not good, okay? I'll just say that. So, that being said, what you're going to want to do is first go down here, the map sheets, okay? Now, remember before we talked about 23 in Burleigh County? All right, well, that same item pops up here, okay? This is the map of North Dakota. Let's go down to 23. You click on 23. Actually, you don't click on 23. You go down below here. and you find sheet number 23 right here, and you click on it, and it takes a moment, and it's actually going to pull up that particular grid, that area of the map, okay? Now again, this is a PDF, so if you have access to a printer, once it pulls up, you can print that off. In the past, what I've done with, what I did with one crew is he went and, our lead guy in the group, printed off all the sheets and then laminated them and put them in a big scrapbook, a big binder, I guess, which is pretty handy. So here's our area. We're going to zoom in here. And as you can see on the map here, there's yellows, there's reds, there's purples, there's greens, all that stuff. All right. Yellow represents plots maps. Red represents state hunting properties. The green areas, okay, represent waterfowl production areas. You can hunt those areas. Now, the areas that are green with lines in them, those are refuge areas. You cannot hunt in those refuge areas, at least for waterfowl, okay? I know there are certain times of the area where they kind of loosen it up a little bit and you can hunt for like pheasants and things like that. But those green areas with stripes are refuge areas. And trust me, you're going to want those refuge areas because it's going to keep birds around so you don't push them off. So that's how that works. Again, all you have to do is look at these map sections here and print them off. Now, there's also another way that you can do this. And bear with me while I'm backtracking here. Is I believe you go to the mobile viewer here. And it's going to bring you up to an actual browser. And once that pulls up, again, you're just going to click on the certain part of the state you want to hunt. And we'll go back to that area again that was 23. And again, this always takes a few minutes for it to pull up. So again, I apologize. And again, I hope you guys can all see what's going on here. And if not, hopefully what I'm verbalizing to you guys helps as well. So again, the website, finding out all the start dates, licenses, and all that. Just go to there we go. Right there. All right. There. All right. So there's our section 23 right here. You go ahead and click on it, and it'll zoom us in. You may have to scoot up and down quite possibly as well. And there's our section 23. You want to zoom in, you just go ahead and click on the plus icon and it takes you right in, all right? And it takes a little bit closer look at the area that you want to hunt. So that's pretty much the long and short as far as properties out there with North Dakota. So let's take a moment and talk about a few other things here that don't involve the plots mapping. Okay, so we looked at the plots map, we talked about places to stay out there. Let's talk about a few other things, okay? Let's talk about areas that are of interest. Devil's Lake, all right? Much has been said about Devil's Lake. It attracts a lot of pressure. It attracts a lot of attention. You know, usually when you've got a hunting show that goes out to North Dakota, where are they going? They're going to Devil's Lake, okay? And rightfully so. It's a big attraction. But what I'm going to tell you is something that I've heard through the grapevine from a lot of people, is that while there's plenty of public land out there in North Dakota, the Devil's Lake area gets hit particularly hard. This is how this all works. The people in North Dakota are very accommodating. They're very welcoming. They're good people. And the little rule about private land out there is that if it's not posted, you can hunt on it. We'll get into the specifics of that in a few minutes. But private land, if it's posted, the people that own the property, if it is posted, they're pretty good and it doesn't hurt to ask. What I can tell you is that what's going on out there, from what I hear, is a lot of the guides are leasing up the private properties around Devil's Lake. And what happens is that the property owners aren't allowing people to get on the property out there. So you may say to yourself, okay, well, you just go on public land. Well, that's what's happening, is all the people that are out there to hunt are going to the private or the public lands out there, and it's getting choked. So while some areas that I've hunted in the past, I haven't really bumped into too many hunters, which makes it fantastic out there in North Dakota. The areas around Devil's Lake can get pretty busy, especially if you don't have a boat to get out on the lake. So keep that in mind. What else can I talk to you about as far as where? It's a big state. There's a lot of different areas to go. There really isn't a bad area. But like I said, if you stay in that central area of the state, you're going to be fine. forgive me while I check my notebook here. Talked about posted land. One of the rules for the state is that if the land is not posted, you can go on it. Now, this is all the criteria that comes into play here, and this is straight from the regulations. For posted land, it says any land entirely surrounded or enclosed by a fence, having a posted sign on the gate or on a post of the fence at the corners is considered posted, okay? If it's not surrounded by a fence, all right, a sign must be posted no more than 880 yards apart. Okay, so if you want to split some hairs out there, make sure you have your rangefinder with you and check it out. But again, like I said, posted land out there, any land that's entirely surrounded or enclosed by a fence, okay, and is having a posted sign on it or inside it, it's considered posted. Okay, if it's not marked, okay, and you want a hunted property owner rise and they tell you to leave, leave. That's the end of the story. It's their property. Sure, they may not have posted it correctly, but again, it's their property. True story, this past year, the last day that I hunted, I found a nice body of water to get on, loaded with bluebills. A lot of snow geese were flying over at that time. Shot a bluebill, pretty pumped up about it. Next thing you know, farmer comes rolling up in his UTV, introduces himself, said that I was on private property and I had to leave, which I said, yeah, by all means I'll leave. I apologize, but I didn't see any posted signs, and he told me there were signs all over the place. Okay, fine. I left. I didn't see any signs at all. Whatever, but it's his property. I left without making a big deal. Let's talk about when's the best time to go out there. This is a kind of a funny question. Well, first and foremost, you got to pay attention when the season's open, okay? And as of right now, they got an early goose season that opens up August 15th and runs till September 15th. As I mentioned in the previous installment of the do-it-yourself hunt that I put up, North Dakota has two openings. They've got a resident opening, which this year is slated for September 23rd, and they have a non-resident opening, which is slated for September 30th, okay? We're from out of state, we can't hunt there until the non-resident opener. Okay, if you want to hunt swans, their season opens the 30th. That's the parameter that we have to deal with. What can I tell you other than that? There really isn't a bad place to go there. The best time is to just go. That's what an old timer from the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources told me when I asked him about it. Some things to keep in mind, though, is that hunting earlier in the season, just like here in Wisconsin, you're going to deal with brown ducks. Okay, and what do I mean by brown ducks? Ducks that don't have their plumage. They're not all plumed out, which is kind of interesting. The number of ducks, as far as species out there, are much more diverse than we have here in Wisconsin. Our early season, we primarily deal with mallards, wood ducks, blue-winged teal, geese, obviously. Out there, the species are a little more varied. Not only are you going to run into mallards out there and teal, but you're also going to run into redheads, canvasbacks, gadwalls, widgeons. It just run the gamut. There's so many different species out there, so you have to be on your game as far as identifying these birds too. Not only identifying by species, but sex, because again, you're only allowed so many of each species in Wisconsin, and only so many of each sex in Wisconsin. It's the same thing out in North Dakota. What else can I tell you about going out there? Weather's king. We all know that. The first year I went out there was in the 40s, but years after that, I've gone out there when it was maybe in the morning, and it was mid-October, late October. It was in the 40s in the morning, and it was pushing mid-60s in the afternoon in bluebird skies. Not necessarily conducive to hunting. This past year, I was out there the first day, and it was like in the mid-40s. Next morning I got up, it was 16 degrees with gale warnings, and we got a little bit of snow. 2 years ago when I was out there, it was basically in the mid-50s. When we got out there, midweek it dropped down into the 30s, and we had really windy, nasty, cold, just brutal weather to hunt in. So it can be anything. You always try to get out there when the weather is duckiest, but you can't always, plan on that. So again, my advice to you is pick a time to go and go. and just deal with what the weather offers you. It's a beautiful state. It's a great adventure to go out there. Let's talk about other things in regards to time. Two things that have come up, maybe even three that have come up in the years that I have prepared to go out there, is number one, they talk about the Minnesota Teachers Convention. Now, what's this all about? Well, we all know that Minnesota butts right up to North Dakota. And basically what this is a convention in Minnesota where, if I understand correctly, there's no school for the kids because the teachers are off at this convention. I think it's got Thursday, Friday, and then of course they have Saturday and Sunday off. So those teachers that don't go to the convention, go hunting, they take their families. Or the kids that don't have school, that hunt, or hunting families, they decide to go on vacation out there. So I'm not saying that the properties you want to hunt are going to be just crawling with other hunters, but just kind of keep that in mind. Things get a little bit busier on the highways, and you might bump into more people. Another thing to keep in mind is the North Dakota deer season. This year, North Dakota's deer season is November 9th. It's their gun season. It's tentative. Now, how does this all play in? Well, people in North Dakota are protective of their properties, in particular protective of their deer. And while I said before that property owners are pretty open, they're pretty liberal, they understand those ducks get into the crops, they don't necessarily always want them out there, okay? But they're protective of the deer. The last thing that they want is for hunters to go on their property and chase deer off. Now, I'm not saying that they would purposely chase them off, but you're out there in the fields, you're in the marshes, and when deer smell that, we all know, those of us that have hunted deer before, they will scoot off the property. So the property owners like to keep things quiet on their property and may not be as willing to allow you to get on their property to hunt. So I mean, that's the long and short of, I guess, property and where to hunt out there. Again, any questions, feel free to drop me a message down below here, Yard Breather Outdoors. The next episode, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about some tactics out there. You might say to yourself, well, you've hunted ducks in Wisconsin or Minnesota or Illinois, it's all the same. Not necessarily. This is a little different animal out there, and there's some, I guess, unwritten rules and some things that they don't tell you. They don't put in a brochure when you go out there. So until I get that episode up, hey, take it easy, guys. Have a great week, and we'll talk to you soon.